We're ready.
Hi, and welcome to Connext Live with CX Forums. And today we have a special guest host, Dennis Wakabayashi, and he's going to be chatting with Deba Sahoo from Fidelity Investments about the secret to CX innovation. Take it over, guys.
All right, thank you, everyone. Welcome to CX Forums Connext Live. Today, it's my proud honor to invite and introduce Deba Sahoo. He's the SVP at Fidelity working on transformation. But when I asked Deba to be on the show, I let him know that this is a real community, and we have personal conversations, and we try to get to kind of the underlying people and the conversations that matter. It's very casual. So with that said, I just want to welcome Deba. Deba, welcome to the show. And if you might, sir, just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. First of all, thank you, Dennis and Mark, to invite me for this particular discussion. I'm very, very honored. I'm Deba Sahoo. I currently work at Fidelity Investments as a Senior Vice President and Head of Product for Customer Journeys for the last few years. But my journey personally, I was brought up in India, grew up in a small village in India a long time back, and then I moved to US maybe 15 years back to do my business school at the Chicago Booth School of Business. And then I have done various leadership roles in strategy, in engineering, in product and analytics. And for the last few years, I have the fortune of leading kind of a really large scale transformation of our B2B customer experience as well as customer journeys within Fidelity. And I'll be happy to share kind of my perspective, my thoughts, but really, again, thankful for inviting me to this particular forum.
Welcome, Deba. So it's always fun to talk to you. We've had a chance to talk together on a couple of other shows. And one of the things that I always find so warm and welcoming about you, and I think that you share with the other folks in this audience, is you always make time to have conversations with whomever asks you. And I think you're just so generous. And I think when we talked earlier, part of this generosity that we see from people, I think, comes from an acknowledgement or an empathy for what other people are going through. And I have a belief that somewhere we all have some adversity that we've overcome. And tell us about, I'm just fascinated. You started out in India in a small village, and now you're leading global transformation projects. What did you learn? What was the part of your journey that really started you down the path of resilience and being able to overcome adversity with positivity?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, yeah, I'm very honest. I don't think I ever thought that I'll be leading large-scale transformation of a financial services company when I actually growing up in India. Because again, I didn't know about Fidelity Investment. I didn't know what retirement planning was. I think it was totally new. But I'll tell you, like, I was born in a small village in eastern part of India. It's in a state called Orissa. My family were farmers, so I grew up in farmlands and rice fields and all. None of my family members have ever had a job, and it's just that I think as I was going to the school, my school was again I went to school that had trees and all. I kind of sat on the trees and studied. I think it was very clear that I was doing well in studies when I was a young kid. And then the only thing I had, I didn't have access to money or resources or exposure. And everybody around me started thinking, you know what, this kid needs to do something bigger. And that's how all this started. And I made a decision early on that I still go back to that actually changed my entire life's perspective and my journey. I actually moved out of my house at age 10 to go to a boarding school. So my dad basically said, you got to go somewhere to get exposure. And there was a school funded by government in India at that time. So I left my house at age 10, and then I've been living, alone in the boarding school since then. And I spent my schooling years there. It was difficult in the beginning, but it was completely transformational in terms of what I thought about myself, the exposure I got, the people I interacted with. We all were kind of people similar background, and we all hung together. I still have very close friends with every single person from my high school because we all kind of survived that particular phase. But I would say I think the things I take from that is having just talent or skills, that's just one part of the equation. The rest, everything, I personally had to kind of really fight for every single thing, either access to TV, access to newspaper, access to English, resources, exposure, help. But I took advantage of every single opportunity that came my way. So a lot of that really came from, I would say, dealing with people and adversity. Every single time I had to take help from somebody, there are a lot of people along the way that have helped me generously, and I take a lot of pride in that, and I take a lot of gratitude. I think I use all that today. If I think about a problem, there are some things I bring to the table, but it's a lot about collaboration, working with people, really connecting with people, how people work, how things are connected. Nothing is easy. Transformation is never easy. You need to really kind of focus on multiple different factors. And I always kind of go back to my roots and how I kind of survived, adapted, and dealt with all those things purely through dealing with people. And I kind of always go back to that, and that's the story that I still would say in today's and any kind of transformation. It's the human experience, it's the resilience, it's the positive attitude. Those things matter more than just the technical skill set that you have.
I love what you're saying. You said so many great things there. A couple of things that resonated with me are, it is about collaboration and teamwork with others and coming from this place of gratitude and empathy for others. I think all of those are really important factors. What I also like about your story and what I wanted to share with this audience is I find you inspirational. I don't suspect, but I'm not sure. When you were in the rice farm at 10 years old, I'm not certain you were like, I need to be in global transformation. That's my route. I think you acknowledge the help that you got from others. Many of us in this show today are all looking for ways, paths to improve customer experiences, human experiences, our own stature or success. And knowing that you can do it as a nice person is always a message that I like to share. I always try to tell people in the boardroom that CX people, we're the nice people of the business world. We're not the sharks. We're the good guys and good girls. So I love that about you. I think what the audience might be interested in hearing about is, so you come from this, let's just call it a human place, and you find yourself in corporate America. And I'll ask you to look at this from two sides of the coin. On one hand, what do you look for? You're in a room full of customer experience, enthusiasts, professionals. What do you look for when you want to connect with those type of people? And then what do you do that they should do that takes you further up into the bigger conversation? So first part, what do you look for when you associate yourself with other CX professionals?
Yeah, great question. So I would say I think there are a few things. One thing I definitely see when I really talk to other CX professionals is passion. I think all of us feel kind of passionate about customer experience, our customers. We want to be in our customers' shoes, and everything actually starts from there. And I feel like when you don't have that, it's just difficult to make a lot of progress because this is not easy and it's going to be hard. So having passion and empathy towards your customers and really thinking, no, this is not going to work. Um, this is not right, and we really need to change it. I think that's a common theme I see amongst all the peers and folks I interact with. Now, one thing I would say, I think to make progress, as I said, it is a very people-centric challenge. I think the technical parts, other things are easier to figure out, and making sure that you use your passion, authenticity to actually drive the change and very open about doing it because it is not, it will take multiple layers. It's a multifaceted problem. You got to deal with people, technology, product, customers, and doing whatever it actually takes to kind of keep moving. And I've seen that kind of passion is very contagious. And if you're passionate about and you're actually showing and coming across like that, people will be working with you, they'll help you, and they will kind of be willing to collaborate with you. And over time, you'll actually get everybody on your side and things will start moving.
So when you talked about the passion there, you really were touching on resilience, this idea of sticking with it to get to the end or to the next step. But from an actual real world business perspective, Deba, one of the things that I heard you speak about at a conference earlier in the year, or maybe it was last year, that really stuck with me that I'd like you to share with this group is as you described how to be successful in business at delivering transformation, you gave this window of achieving objectives quickly and regularly. So what I took from that, because I've been in a number of CX transformations that just honestly didn't go as far as I had hoped. And I realized when I heard you speak, it took too long for us to show the wins. So had we brought our wins or our wins in shorter, we would have been able to go the following years. And in that, when I heard you speak before, you were saying it's important you get a win every year. You don't want to do everything each year. You want to be able to point to a win so you can move to the next step. Can you talk to us about your principles there and how our family here at CX Forums can maybe look for short-term wins that are going to take them further?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think there are two things I would say. I think one, I think it's very clear for all of us that any kind of transformation takes a long time. So we will not be successful by just focusing on a few months or a year. So it's important that we are invested, we're actually resilient, we're focused on this for a long period of time in a sustained manner. Now, how corporations work though, I think you have to earn your way. That every year there are always planning process, strategy process, investments being reviewed. It's important that every year you earn the right to actually play for one more year. So it's important that you actually take that in mind that if you want to wait to deliver something in 3 years out, you may not get a chance to play 3 years down the line. So it's important that you actually deliver every year something, you build credibility, you build trust. It's kind of a positive cycle. You keep doing well, you'll get more investments, you have more support, you keep doing well, you do more and more, and then you'll be successful. For some reason, if you get into a negative cycle or a flat cycle, things will slow down and then leadership will change, something will happen, and then you will be stuck and you will not deliver what you thought you could deliver. So I think it's a kind of taking a very practical lens and to the fact that hey, not everything you're going to earn. So every year you're going to earn the right to actually play for one more year and keep moving towards the longer term path.
Yeah, on that cycle, I'm really curious. Is it a 90-day cycle? If I was leading transformation, I imagine this works for both global brands but smaller brands. What's the cycle? If I'm working with the company, should I say, listen, let's get together every month or every 6 months or every 3 months? What is the ideal length of a cycle? And what are the 3 top things that we should be communicating to our leaders to win that trust and continue to get those short wins?
Yeah, so great question. So I would say I think it's having the right balance that we're discussing this, having a longer term view on where we're actually going, that people are actually clear about the longer term where we're actually going, and then showing value on what actually they will get in the next 3 months, 6 months, a year. So I think it will be somewhere between 3 months to 6 months and a year. It shouldn't be anything more than that to make sure that you are actually delivering concrete value. But again, you also show in the context of that, like, okay, so what is the longer term we're actually headed, so that people can actually contextualize that this is not some tactical thing we're actually doing in the context of a bigger and a better thing for the long term. And having that balanced view. But yeah, I think 3 to 6 months, at max a year, it's important that you deliver capabilities and the value. As you can imagine, many of these things, they span. Some are in early stages, that may take some years to actually get to scale. Some are in mature stages. So having a portfolio view and then you're actually showing short to medium term progress and value delivery versus kind of also working on things that you think will deliver more in the long term.
So, I think that's a great broad stroke strategy. And I love the 3 month sprint. I think it gives you a chance to check and see if you're still on target as well as you lead a team, you want to be sure the team that you're on track. One of the things that I think everyone would be curious to know, you've seen a lot of different transformations. What are some of the easy first year wins? All of us probably have a client or a project that we're working on that's within the first year. What should we, as an expert, what should we be looking for? What are the easy quick wins, and what are the things we should not be trying to win the first year?
Yeah. So again, I'll share from my perspective. I think few things that in the first year, it's important that, again, the win could be from multiple different angles, but I think that two things is important. One, you deliver some concrete business value. So again, generally the transformation is coming from a business, which is funding, right? So it's important that there is some kind of business value, whether it is scale, whether it is customer satisfaction, whether that is revenue, whatever is the case, like some kind of value that you can actually point to in a very concrete manner. So that's important. And second, it's important that you actually get allies in your side within the first year, that you have your champions that trust you, that are now on your side, that either they're your customers or they're your biggest stakeholders, that you really need to make sure that there are people with you and they're like, you know what, I am totally committed to Davis or somebody's vision and transformation. We think this is going to work and we'll be fully behind it. I think those two are important. And the rest of
Who are the key champions that we need to find? Because I find that we all go into these businesses and we meet a lot of people. Are there key people that is there a secret group of people in an organization? Like, for instance, I would ask, is it better to have someone from IT, someone from the line of business, product owner, someone from marketing, someone from the executive team, or is it better to have a manager, a director, a VP, all within one silo, like technology or marketing?
Yeah, no, great question. In my view, my experience, I think having champions just from one function is not going to be good enough. I think that's probably easily you'll get that, because generally, if you're working on something, your bosses and your functions will actually support you. But I do think it is important to have champions from other part of the business where you are not part of. So let's say you're part of product organization, maybe you need somebody from customer experience organization, or customer service, or somebody, or some big clients, or maybe market. Again, it depends on the context of what kind of transformation you're driving. But it got to be more than your kind of existing org structure. It got to be more from people outside of that. And I do think that is what will be more meaningful and drive more credibility into the work versus just your organization.
And maybe it shows you a little more of how we can find some of those short wins. I'm getting some text check questions. Let me see. First question. Wow, they've got questions. Sorry. All right. So, Carl says, Carl, do you want to just get on the mic and ask your question? I mean, we're all friends here.
Thank you. I'm sure you could have spoken for me, Dennis. That would be okay. No. What I was thinking about here, it made me reflect on some past experience I had in sales. And when you're in a selling situation, when you're selling a concept and not necessarily an off-the-shelf product, you're really working with the client, and you're not moving in on the kill right away, to close the sale here, but you're always trying to earn the right to get to the next step. And when Deba, when you were talking about that, that made me think of what we were just talking about here. I mean, getting to those next steps in the wins or quick wins. I'm not sure I like that kind of language, quick wins, but it's getting to the next step. So my question was, and it's not always easy in an organization to be able to get to that place. So what do you recommend that as a manager of customer experience, should people be doing in that role regularly to keep that visibility, to make sure that you are earning the right to get to the next step? How do you do that?
Yeah, no, great question. So I would say, yeah, it's tough. I think one of the ways that I think it's important to do is like to accept the fact that a big part of the role or a big part of the success will be driven by having these kind of, I call, storytelling sessions with other leaders and all, and making sure they're updated. And everybody may not like those things, but they're really, really important that you actually do it. And when you do it in the context of two things. One, you sell a vision. Like, nobody will actually invest in you by saying, hey, I will deliver some small incremental improvements. Nobody will do that, right? So you're going to sell a vision that it's longer term, it's aspirational, it's clear, and then you're going to show that you actually can get there because you're actually delivering some meaningful value in a small capacity. And you're going to do that. Again, identify who are the right people. Again, that may vary by different organizations. Different teams have the different structures and who the right people are. You got to identify who they are and make sure that you are continuously talking to them. And that may be every quarter, every 6 months, every 2 months, depends on the scenario. But it's important that you're actually doing it. Sometimes it's just purely to keep them updated. Sometimes it's just going to making sure that they're on your side. In a corporation, things are happening all the time. There's always that friction between doing something near-term tactical versus doing transformation. And I have seen, if you are not doing that kind of storytelling on a regular basis, you kind of step back for 6 months, things don't go well. And then somebody has done something and some other story is coming along, and then things are actually starting to affect in a negative way. So it's really important that you actually stay ahead of this, being proactive, and do all this, because that has a direct benefit to the success of the program.
Awesome. Deba, we have some more questions coming in. Before we move on to this next question, I think Susan asked a great question. I think one of the things that I asked you before is, what is the one thing you know about delivering transformation that nobody else knows? And I'd love to just make sure we get that out. And then from there, we'll open it up and we'll start with Susan's questions, because I'm sure everybody wants to ask you something. Deba, you talked about transformation going from point A to point B. How should people be thinking about that?
No, great question again. So I would say, I think, fundamentally, if you think about transformation, it's going from point A to point B. You got to define, point A is where you are currently. Point B is where you want to go. So you're going to define what is your point B at a simplistic level. I would say, because point B is more future, it is more relatively actually easier to actually do. If you just want to focus on point B and, hey, I want to build something new, I want to just build in point B with new technologies, new things, it's important, you'll get a lot done, but it's still relatively easier. But the real transformation, the challenge actually happens when you need to go from point A to point B. And to get there, you got to first accept your point A. And it is what it is. Like, your organization may have some things that are already in place. Or maybe your customer experience sucks. Maybe it's bad. Maybe it's okay. Whatever it is. Or maybe your technical infrastructure is not good. Whatever is the case, just accept it. Make sure that everybody accepts it. And then you think about how to go from that to a point B. Because just kind of doing point B, you will do some small innovation. You will never actually get to scalable transformation. You've got to have a path to figure out how to go from point A to B. And that will take people, change management, other kind of stuff that you may not love, that may be tedious, maybe hard. But in my view, like, I focus more on accepting point A, thinking about point B, how to go there, how to have a plan, and then be kind of really resilient and really kind of continuously pushing that envelope to see how to go from point A to point B, because it is not easy. But if we just focus on point B, the chances of doing transformation is actually close to.
I think that's fantastic. I've been stressing this to a lot of people all week, giving you credit. People think about transformation from point A to point B, but people look at point B, but transformation happens at point A. I think that's brilliant insight. Susan, I wonder if you could step on. We'd love you to ask Deba's question, and then we'll go into the breakout rooms where you guys can have a little more intimate conversation with Deba and the other CX Forums people today.
Okay, great. My question, and I'll read it through. If a company subscribes to the theory or the cultural mantra, nothing much happens until somebody sells something, and the acquisition of the customer supersedes the service of the customer, do you have any recommendations about how to morph the culture, thought, or mission or objective to transform the focus of the maintenance or the loyalty factor or the continuation of a long-term customer? A lot of change is taking place now that COVID has happened and the world is upside down. So this is a huge element in terms of figuring out how to make that customer experience better. So if you have a problem with the priority of the customer being a focus and all of the services that go with it, how do you, particularly Fidelity, I mean, you have a big organization, how do you ensure that that customer becomes the priority across the organization?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no, Susan, great question. So I would say again, more broadly, and Fidelity is a large company, and we have different views and all. But I would say, yeah, I don't think this particular way. I think acquisition is important, but again, I don't want to make something broad. But if you really think about a company, acquisition is one component of the business economics. And in most cases, actually, retention is more important than acquisition, because you generally at Fidelity or maybe other places, like sometimes the new customers are, from a business economics perspective, are not as profitable. It takes longer for them to be profitable. And it's much more beneficial to actually retain our existing customers at a very, very higher retention rate. So we focus on making sure that, one, it is super important to retain what we already have, to cultivate the loyalty, to grow them, and to get more out of those customers and their share of wallet. So it's important that we really focus on their experience and constantly improving their experience. Otherwise, they will go somewhere else. And the cost of acquiring new customers is actually a lot more than retaining our existing ones. That's one. So I think it's important actually to communicate that more broadly within the organization. Sometimes showing economics and the value of existing customer more than new customers is important to kind of highlight that point. There are different ways to highlight that, but in general, I've seen existing customers are actually beneficial and more beneficial for the business than new customers. And if you show that in an economical way, you'll get more of the success.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I think you're so right. I always try to separate unknown customers from known customers. There's a difference in the way it affects the balance sheet. Hey, Deba, I wanted to jump in and just say, Patty has a fantastic question as well. And I'd like to get this in before we go to the breakouts. Patty, can you jump on and ask your question?
Sure. My question's pretty straightforward, and it's, I think, a perfect question following Susan. So thank you for taking it. I appreciate that.
Yes,
but my question is, we know that there's a gap between what a company perceives customer experience is and what a customer perceives that customer experience is. And I was wondering how you deal with that gap inside your organization, and how you've dealt with it in the past, and what you recommend that companies do to help that organization provide that experience that the customer actually would like.
Yeah, no, so Perry, it's a great question. I do think in many cases there's a gap between the perception of what the company thinks about the customer experience versus what the reality is, what the customers think. So I think it's all, for us to succeed, it's important that there is a constant loop in terms of staying connected with our customers, whether that is a kind of a mass kind of forum or focus groups or user groups. And it's important to actually invest in having the kind of routines on an ongoing basis to really hear directly from the customers all the appropriate things that they tell us. And then as customer experience professionals, it's important that we actually call those things out more broadly within the organization, especially with leadership, as they're very removed from the actual customer experience. They may not actually realize what the impact is. And sometimes when you just see the numbers, you may actually get the story that, hey, I see the NPS is 55 or something. That means everything is good. So the way I do it, like, you got to get the real stories, and then in all these conversations, actually start with the stories. Like, say, hey, let's just put you in customer shoes. Let's say your customer is trying to do a transaction. Let me take 10 minutes to actually give you a demo of how the customer is actually doing that. before we get into what we'll actually do about it. Let's just kind of deal with it. And then you'll get some time, like sometimes you'll realize, oh, it's so bad or it's not great. And then people are like, okay, now I get it. Now I get it, why I want to change it, how I want to transform it. Kind of starting everything with that story, and I do that all the time. It's so powerful. Sometimes I actually get the customer directly to a leadership meeting, or we'll basically say, can you record a video? Can you record your screenshot? Just tell me what exactly you're going through. And then we actually play in day in and day out to really make sure that people are thinking about it. And it's super important that we do it. Otherwise, just all the meetings and everything that goes on, it's important. It is easy to kind of forget about the perception of what internally we have versus what the reality is.
That's right. That's a great way to connect the reality and the practice of selling the dream. I love that. Deba, thank you so much. Now we're going to break out to some breakout rooms. Each of you will have a chance to talk a little one-on-one with Deba. Audrey, would you like to take us into the breakouts?